Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Arena Championship number 5. Cedric Phillips, Tan and Grace here in our virtual booths from home, just like the players playing from home. As we're getting ready to watch more limited action, we got a Hall of Famer in front of us, Tannen, who is always a delight to watch play.
Yeah, big fan of Raphael Levy. I was joking with you about how, to try to convey to the people at home how long he's been around. I played against him in a Grand Prix. I think it was original Innistrad, and he'd already had a Hall of Fame career at that point. And you can kind of see it. Look how many limited games he's played. He's been Mythic Rank 1. He's got a 63% win rate over 13,000 games. And that's probably not even a dent in how many games he's played in his career.
Well, on one side of things, you do see Raphael Levy. On the other side of things, you're going to see Muhan Yu. And it is notable here for Raph, he's got a 4-color deck in the Pam. On the other side of things, we're actually going to finally see Boros, it looks like. So this should be fun. We've seen all of these mishmash weird decks. Boros is arguably the best deck in the format if you can get it, which is hard to do in a tournament of this level. So I think some deck lists will be in front of us here in just a moment, and they will be. And we do see what looks to be a pretty straightforward Boros deck here from looking to see if I see any dog walkers. I see at least one, so that's a good place to be. And then for Raph, well, we got all the colors of the rainbow. Mana not as good as some of the other decks that we have seen, but one thing that is notable here, partner, is that if you want to do the 4 or 5 color thing, we've seen a lot of people do it here this weekend, and it looks like it's working out just fine.
Yeah, we're going to just fine. Analyze the pollen can go a long way in this matchup, keep making sure that mana is good if he draws it early. Here's the important part, though, Cedric. That's a shock in Raphael Levy's opening hand. And I think that is unbelievably important in this matchup, especially since we're coming into game 2 and he's down a game against this aggressive deck from Muhan Yu, who could have certain starts that just punishes these decks that have a little bit of a greedier mana base.
Absolutely. So, looks like Raph is happy enough with the hand. Muhan's hand is not great. Going to send at least one card back. Lightning Helix looks like it might be the one that's going to go away.
And it's that, or maybe the double red card, because you have to draw running mountains from here to get there. But you are on the draw. It's an extremely powerful card in the matchup. And the fact that it's just a 4/4 flying trampler for 4, like it doesn't have any more text. That's fine, right? Like it's a huge creature on turn 4 that Raph might have a hard time dealing with. So Muhan trying to get the best and the most out of his hand here. I love those kind of mulligan decisions. I think they're better than just always taking the safe mulligan.
Well, we're going to see how things do break. First draw step is a red card. It was a copy of Red Herring, just a plains here for Muhan and passing the turn back.
Another important card in the matchup here, drawn by Raph here. Deadly Cover Up is one that could go a long way in this matchup. And look, if Muhan's going to miss on land drops, this isn't the worst card ever to hit here. The Automaton not only is a 2-drop here, but it's going to allow him to Surveil. So there's no land on top. I got to believe whatever the card is going into the graveyard. Yeah, it is.
And it is headed to the graveyard. But you are right about that being one of the better 2-drops that can be found in a spot like that. So we're going to head back Raph's way right now. Again, when we're watching these 3, 4, 5 color decks, I keep my eyes on the mana less so than the cards. Now, obviously, if you can cast the cards, winning is going to be a lot easier as opposed to not. But it is important for the mana base to actually work, and it's mostly working right now for Raph.
Yeah, and he's thinking about, do I want to go get a plains here? To be able to play the case file auditor next turn if he wants. He's got a 4-drop in his hand that he might be able to play as well. He can leave up shock here to kind of keep his life total high. I mean, he's going to feel a lot better about this game if Muhan doesn't play a land next turn, because you can see he's kind of thinking about, what am I doing the next couple turns, and what's the cost of me finding this plains? I don't get my second black for Deadly Cover Up is the big thing here. And huge top deck for Muhan.
Yeah, now we've got ourselves a game. A mountain comes rolling off the top of the deck. Somewhat in part to the surveil from the automaton, putting a card into the graveyard. So now we have Krenko, Baron of Tin Street. That's a real one right there.
Yeah, that is one of the better 3-drops, especially in the aggressive decks in this format. Not only does it have haste and it's going to push through a ton of damage, now if the game ever starts to stall out, Krenko can take over the game with the sacrificing an artifact, pay a red, make a goblin, start to grow all the goblins. This is an army built into itself. It's really good with the card Red Herring that you see in Muhan's hand. It's an artifact that you're okay with getting rid of in some spots. It's a little mana intensive, but again, it's a 3/3 with haste is the big deal here against Raph.
Well, Krenko's going to resolve. A shock took care of the automaton, and now Krenko's going to come on into the red zone. So Raph's going to fall down to 17. Play the planes that he searched for. And now the follow-up is a case file.
I
A
think he
little
has
auditing to
multiple.
be done.
Yeah, I think he has multiple cases in his deck, at least 2 or 3. So it's something that sometimes you find one, you get the extra card. Big thing here, it's a 1/4, Cedric. This thing can block for days against a lot of these creatures that Muhan's dealing with. And also it gives him time maybe to start to develop Grave Strider at some point, Gravestone Strider, and maybe get this deadly cover up, because all Raph wants to do here is gum up the works a tiny bit enough that when Muhan plays that one extra creature, we're going to get that Wrath effect, kind of like we had in our the earlier part of this round.
Yeah, that would certainly be the plan, but Raph is going to be underneath a little bit of pressure now because Krenko's Buzzcutter has joined the fray. That 4/4 flyer, the text on that, not really going to matter here in this particular game. Comes up a little bit in this format, but not a ton. But that just being a big 4/4 flyer is going to matter.
Ooh.
So let's see what Raph is able to do now. Missed entirely with the case file auditor, but did pick up a case.
Yeah, this is a pretty good one that if he wants to get it into play, will be able to find that second source of black, but he would be giving up quite a bit of development for the rest of the turn. So let's see. I think maybe developing this into Gravehound Strider might be better, but I think he's weighing that if he wants to put the other case into play first, which, his mana is technically fixed, but he could have cast this anyway. So let's see which direction Wrath actually wants to go here. And I was going to say, I lean towards Case of the Shattered Pact into Gravestone Strider.
You can see Levy's not entirely sure what he wants to do in a spot like this. Even decisions like this are difficult for a Magic Hall of Famer who's not entirely sure exactly how he wants to navigate this turn. The 1/4 is solving the Krenko problem, at least for right now. The Buzz Cutter is a real issue because it does provide a quick clock, and now the time is starting to run on him a little bit now, too. 1 timeout used, no timeouts left right now. And if you've played Arena as much as these players have, you know you don't like being forced to make a decision, but you got to make one.
And that could come up with Roth's deck. He's got a complicated deck with a lot of things going on, and he might have to make some hard decisions. Not having a timeout from here, that could come back and be relevant in this matchup. There's so much haste on Muhan. Look, Cedric, you wanted a Boros deck. You got one. This is a hell of a deck from Muhan here. I don't know how he's 0-1. This deck's great so far.
Yeah.
What I've seen.
It looks good so far. There were mana issues, and we saw him have to keep a hand with no red mana. Sometimes 2-color decks, the mana doesn't function as intended, and at least things were starting that way here for Muhan, but things have certainly changed with the appropriate draw steps. 2 running mountains, which you said were going to be necessary. Well, they did show up, and now multiple copies of Red Herring in hand, among other things. So how does Muhan want to navigate this? Because, again, remember, this is a format that does have quite a few sweepers in it.
Yeah, and it looks like he's not going to go with the double Red Herring play, which I think some people would have been inclined to because it would just force through so much damage. But I think he's worried about, swamp into Deadly Cover-Up or something like this on the next turn. It looks like he's going to go ahead and, so say he's got a Watchdog in his hand as well. But Inside Source here does a good job of playing 1 card, but adding a Swamp off the top is pretty big for Levy.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. So a Swamp here can allow for the Devious Cover-Up. Looks like Levy's going to go to another case here first, the Shattered Pact variety.
Maybe trying to get the most possible value out of all of his cards here. He's going to put the Strider into play here as well. What I was trying to say earlier with the Inside Source being played by Muhan, it's not the most mana efficient use of his turn, right? He had a 4-drop, he had 2 2-drops that he could play. But this puts 2 creatures into play, like 2 bodies into play, and he only had to commit 1 card to that. So that's kind of like Muhan giving himself, what's the best way that I can recover from a Wrath effect that's going to happen here this turn most likely?
And here is your Wrath effect. It is a Deadly Cover-Up. This is kind of what this game has been somewhat built around. So Krenko,
he's going to
make a little butthead. Yep, going to make a little butthead here. Wow, Red Herrings, plural. There's 3 of them. Here's 2 of them.
If you like crime novels, there's Red Herrings everywhere.
There sure are. Now I need to turn this game around in a meaningful way.
A little value for Raph here. You see the giggle. He's got a case on top of his deck.
Interesting. Okay. All right. We all like a little bit of value.
Now, the Strider does put a decent blocker into play. Is he able to play? Let's see here. Can he play the Sanguine Savior face down, play the Strider, and be able to turn the Sanguine Savior face up in the same turn? It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He has exactly 7. That can stem a little bit of the bleeding, gain a little bit of life back here, and get some blocks in. The Red Herrings have to attack every turn as well. So he can maybe, block 2 of them, gain some of the life back. I'll say Muhan can force the issue here though with the watchdog, meaning you can like make it to where you have to turn your face up creature. Okay, he's gonna go ahead and just play it face up here. Okay.
Yeah, I think just say, you know what? I got a 2/1 lifelinker that's ready to attempt to do some trading.
Oh, the chase is on drawn for Muhan here as well.
Yeah, not a bad draw step there. Of course, target creature gets +3/+, though, and gains first strike and a turn and investigating so that Muhan can continue to run downhill a little bit, not run out of cards. But for now, it's going to be that watchdog. Here come the beatdowns.
Yeah, and this is a huge play for him since he gets to attack with 3 creatures here. His creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn, and then you can see why I am so impressed with how Muhan has played this game against Raph, because Raph's hand looked like the perfect kind of hand to be able to deal with aggressive aggro Boros deck, and Muhan is giving him fits in the way that he has sequenced this game.
Yeah, and this is somewhat the power of haste. You know, the power level of the deck appears to be pretty high too with Krenko and its Buzz Cutter, but you know, the draw steps have been fairly kind here for Muhan with the running red sources, and Raph is just trying to keep up and having some difficulty doing so. And we have seen games like this in Magic's history before where, you know, this case that's online, it's multiple cards a turn here for Raph. You know, you can play cards off the top of your deck. Of course, you're drawing a card every single turn. And if you're Raphael Levy right now, the thought process here is most likely, I need you to like draw some lands, please.
Yeah.
And please stop playing spells because then I can bury you in my card advantage and eventually walk away with this game. But that has not been the case just yet.
Yeah, and we talked about, you know, Muhan is very close to getting mana screwed this game, right? You know, not getting the 3rd land, not getting the 4th land, but this is the power of when you draw just the right amount of lands. And Cedric, you're an aggro player, you know this. You want to get to 3 or 4 and stop. And when that happens, your decks are nigh unbeatable because you can cast all of your spells and your opponent might draw 7 or 8 lands. And yeah, they can cast their spells, but you're double spelling them most of the time.
Yeah, and that's the dream, is if you're able to double spell them, and some of those spells that you're playing involve haste, which these red herrings do, you're in a very, very, very good spot. So Raph is trying to keep up as best as possible right now, having some difficulty, but here is a deadly complication.
So that was huge. This allowed him, he had to take a risk there and draw some extra cards and hope there was a land. There was a land for him. He got to play that. He gets to kill the watchdog. Now the creatures are a little more manageable on board. And he's hoping that, hey, if I can survive through this turn, like I've got a ton of value from here. I might be able to win from this spot.
But the big question is, can he survive?
And I think he's thinking about possibly, is he going to play this and let it get sacrificed here just to clear it from the top of his deck? Because I don't know if he can tap an untapped creature here. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, there's a second one on top. You can see the grin from Raph, but I like just playing the land and letting it die there, honestly.
Yeah, I do too, because you obviously have a goal of trying to get something done. And I got bad news here, folks, for Raph, because the land rolled off the top earlier. It was not enough lands. Then it was just right. And now one more is not the worst place to be here for Muhan.
Yeah, exactly. And if you make the obvious blocks here this turn, you actually lose the game as well. Like if you were to block the 1/1 with the 1/3 and then the 2/1 on one of the red herrings, that's 5 damage with the chases on. So really good block by Raphael Levy here. And now decision time for Muhan. Do you use the chases on here to clear out the Strider, or do you want to keep your red herring around to clear out the automaton? There's a lot of questions on how you play this from this spot, and I don't mind Muhan taking his time here. It looks like, is he just going to force through the damage to make sure, let's say his 1/1 would be lethal next turn? Let's say he's got a bunch of options here.
Yeah, there are quite a few options exactly with what to do with this pump spell. And as you mentioned, great block here from the Hall of Famer. No surprise to see him make this level of play, especially if he knows the format quite well, which it appears as though he does. So the blocks are good. There's at least one more turn coming here for Levy. And who knows what rolls off the top of the deck other than that land because of the case that's on the battlefield. So Muhan has a real decision to make now too, because this is the last card. Yes, this will investigate and it'll generate a clue, but we don't know what that card is going to be. So gonna force through the 4 points of damage. Levy's gonna fall down to 1, but 1 is not none, and we're gonna head back Raph's way.
Yeah, so that's an interesting decision, right? To see if you want to put your opponent to 1. I was going to say there might be some more direct damage left over in Muhan's deck, right? I mean, sorry, Muhan's deck. We might have Lightning Helix, we might have Shock, some cards like that. So getting Raph down to 1 and the lowest life total is relevant. And the fact that he has technically 2 clues in play, because he has the clue and the red herring, so he can dig through his deck if the worst case scenario happens here this turn, where, yeah, the the work start getting gummed up so much that you can't really attack anymore, which is what is about to happen. It looks like for Raph.
Yep. So Fairy Snoop is going to be played face down.
This is actually a pretty big draw here for him as well. He's going to be able to kill the Herring before it can be cashed in for a card.
So here's Soul Enervation.
Yeah, this brings some life gain with it as well. If any of his creatures die, how many cards is this case drawn?
I mean, we're at 6 or 7 right now. I mean, even putting that land off the top, I'm just putting it directly in the graveyard too. And this is exactly what Levy needed it to look like, right? It needed to be, I have my case online. I need to just keep my head above water long enough, because if I do, the case is going to win me the game. I'm going to be drawing too many cards for my opponent to keep up with. And Levy is feeling so good about the game that he's willing to attack. And now we head back over to Muhan.
Yeah, that's a position of strength, right? Like attack you for 1, like get that 1 in. But Levy has to end this game as quickly as possible. You saw he just looked at how many cards are left in Muhan's deck. I think there was 24. He probably knows there's at least 1 or 2 direct damage spells in the deck, so he has to finish the game before that happens. Also, pretty big incentive for Raph to start trading creatures off if he can at some point in time, to start triggering his enchantment here as well to possibly get some life gain. And I was going to say, if Raph can dodge the burn spell for the next turn or 2, I think he's in a great spot.
I would agree with you. And now here comes a land off the top.
He's got to be careful, though, with the spells now, Cedric.
Well, he's blowing through his deck.
Okay, well, this is huge now. He's actually going to gain 3 life here. This puts him at 4. He's now out of Lightning Helix range.
Yeah, the alley assailant.
Oh, he can't. I don't think he can turn it face up this turn, Cedric.
Sorry. Well, that costs 6. I think he's good there.
Okay, so
he's got a lot. He's got quite a bit of mana to work with here because of the case. So gonna turn this alley assailant up right now. A little drain, but more importantly, a little gain. So Levy is gonna go up to 4, out of range of the aforementioned Lightning Helix. Gonna play the Public Thoroughfare.
Yeah, it looks like he's gonna go ahead and pay for this one. So they're gonna keep that one around
instead of just placing it into the graveyard via the case.
Now the important part is Raphael Levy has to be careful about decking himself, because he has to be careful about not playing too many cards on top of his deck. He also has to be careful about never going to 0 cards in his hand as well.
Okay.
For the red case would draw extra cards in that point as well.
Yep. So some weird things to think about. And Raph kind of leans back in his chair a little bit, not thrilled exactly with maybe the way that he played this particular turn.
Well, when you only have like 1 time stop left and you have about 40 options every turn, it's going to get difficult.
It does.
So many options for him every single turn.
So here's an attack with a disguised creature. And now the question here is, will there be some sort of trade? And it appears there will be.
And Raph's completely okay with that. You see him kind of nod his head. I'm right with you. I watch the players a lot to see what kind of reactions they have. Land not going to get it done for Muhan here.
No, and if one mountain's bad, the second one's also bad too. So 2 mountains rolling off the top. And this is what I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier when Raph was trying to stabilize this game with the case, when Muhan still had spells in hand, where Raph is just kind of hoping, I just need you to draw a couple of lands, please. And now those lands have shown up here for Muhan. You mentioned how aggro players like myself like to maybe draw 5 lands and all spells. That's the dream come true. Well, land 6 and 7 have found their way into this game. And it looks like Raph has plenty of big O's to play. So a Glint Weaver is where he'll start this turn.
Yeah, this is going to allow him to kind of spread out the +1/+1 counters here. And this is really good for him, the fact that he's got a bunch of creatures now that are hard for Muhan to deal with. He's not going to be able to trade very much. And so this allows Raph to be able to attack a lot better here and in this game much quicker. But he's already at 9. I don't know if this game is in reach anymore.
Yeah, I've got a pretty strong feeling, that 9 is much too difficult to overcome, excuse me.
Yeah.
And you can see a pretty healthy attack.
Yeah, I was going to say, Raph thought about attacking with all 4 of his creatures that could attack there, and that is a huge show of strength from the point that he's at. But he's actually got the life totals almost even now.
It is worth mentioning, as Raph does kind of hover over his deck a little bit, there are 4 cards left in deck. And 4 is not 1 or 0, so you're okay, Mr. Levy, if you're concerned about decking, and you've got some big creatures out here that can get this game over with. So it looks like an outrageous robbery
Yeah, if this finds anything to interact with the board, that'll be enough to be game along with bite down on crime here. Yeah, he did find a haunch. I don't know. Can he pump up one of the 1 power creatures, remove one of the blockers, and kill everything here? Let's say it's another way to gain life too, as well, Cedric.
Yep.
So let's see here. They block the biggest thing. Take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I was gonna say, don't even.
There's not a ton to think about at this point, other than let me get this one over with, because the clock does start to make itself a little bit of a factor here in this game. So there's the attack. We'll follow things up with Person of Interest. And now pass the turn back.
I think he actually just solved the case because he got the red card off his opponent's deck. That's awesome.
That's right. Pretty good. Pretty good. So we are now all tied up. Game number 3 going to be in front of you in just a minute. Raph going to take a moment to walk around. This is one of the benefits of playing at home. You can maybe take the opportunity to compose yourself a little bit for a very important third game, because do remember, we're only looking at 6 rounds today. It's 3 draft and then 3 Explorer coming to you later this afternoon. And then there's 3 rounds tomorrow, and then we make a cut to the top 8. So, some tournaments you play in, you might have 9 rounds day 1, 6 in day number 2. 15 rounds is a lot of match to be played, maybe a little bit of leeway if you make a mistake or two. Not in a tournament like this, especially when we're talking about the prize pool, the invites to the World Championship, and all that jazz. So I think taking a moment to compose yourself is a wise decision for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I need a nap just thinking about playing 9 rounds again in one day, Cedric. Why did we ever do that to ourselves?
What do you mean, what did? More like do. Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, I really would. Like tomorrow.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind. I don't do it as well as I used to, but I wouldn't mind a little 9-rounder.
I'm definitely washed, but if we take a look back at the overhead view of this whole match, I gotta like my chances if I'm Muhan Yu on the play here in this matchup. I think his deck lines up really, really well. If he has something like red herring into Krinko or red herring into Person of Interest or anything like that, any of the good 2-drops into a 3-drop here, I think he's got an easy win in his way. But God, it looks like another possible mulligan here for Muhan Yu, as well as going to be one for Raph.
Yeah, so this is always the spot you want to be in as an aggressive player, which is, okay, I lost game number 2. It was a close one, but I came up a little bit short. But also, don't forget that I did mulligan to 5 that game, and I almost pulled it out, got my opponent down to 1. Well, this game, I'm on the play, which is where my deck wants to be. And yeah, I might have to mulligan. I don't love that, but I've got a hand that functions here now, and my opponent has already taken a mulligan on the draw. This is exactly where you want to be if you're Muhan. Your deck, you've got a 2-drop and a 3-drop. Your opponent's on the mulligan. Your opponent's deck kind of stumbles and fumbles around in the first place. And your opponent's deck has a lot of colors of mana in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is actually a pretty ideal opener for Muhan. We've got a 2-drop into a 3-drop into probably a 4-drop, because I believe a mountain is going to go to the bottom here. I think that's what I would put on the bottom.
That's what I put on the bottom as well. I say, kiss one of these mountains goodbye.
Yeah, because you're likely to draw land as the game goes on, and if you don't, I think you're actually pretty happy, because most of your deck costs 2 or 3 mana, and that means you're drawing nothing but spells for the rest of the game. And you could probably cobble together a win there. And then, for Raph,
if you're Muhan, you're just in the enviable situation of, I put a land back. If I draw a land, it allows me to cast my 4-drop. If I draw a spell, I can almost certainly cast it, which means that all draw steps are good, or just about all of them. That's the dream come true.
And we're in the opposite position for Raphael Levy here, unfortunately for him. He's going to be on the draw. Could you keep this 6, Cedric? Like, it's very scary.
I couldn't.
I was gonna say, I think he's weighing it. So the reason it took so long is because it had shock and a 2-drop in it, right? Mm-hmm. And so if he draws a land off the top, his hand is actually pretty good. But I think it's and going to 5 is almost the same as, like, in some ways could be like close to conceding. So if he just doesn't draw a land his first 2 draw steps, it's the same almost in his mind as going to 5. I think that's what was going through Raphael Levy's head. But it looks like the cooler heads prevailed. He's like, I'm going to try to play a more normal game of Magic here.
Well, he's going to try his hardest. I don't know how that's going to work out for him, but stranger things have happened. So let's see how things do go, as Raph is going to go down to 5 cards. We'll start things off with Muhan and a mountain. He'll pass the turn.
During the drafts, beforehand, I talked about the importance of the 2-drops in these players' decks. And the Automaton, look, it's a card that I overlooked the first few times I drafted and played this format, and then it's just in everyone's deck. It's like a premier 2-drop. The card is just great. the fact that it's a 2-drop that you could play, it trades with disguised cards, and then the surveil actually matters so much in these matchups.
Well, one automaton for each player. Let's see where this mountain's going to go. Does Raph want this?
Yeah, I think he does because it allows him to play either a disguised creature or the case of the Crimson Pulse next turn. He doesn't have to take a turn off to put one of these thoroughfares into play. I think if it was more of a traditional matchup where like you're not guaranteed to be attacked here on turns 3 and 4 by your opponent, that you'd maybe consider pitching it because the game's going to go a little bit slower. But as we've seen the games, they're going faster when Muhan Yu is playing.
They are. And the Thoroughfare is an interesting card because it is powerful in what it does do, but you certainly are going to pay a cost in doing so, and we are seeing that rear its ugly head right now.
Yeah, and I like attacking with just Krinko here for Muhan. You could offer up the trade. It's not horrible, but with Krinko in play, there is a reason to hold on to some of your artifacts as the game goes on.
I would agree. So here comes a disguised Fairy Snoop. Perhaps. Levy is giving this some thought.
Yeah, I think he's thinking about, so obviously you could play the Crimson Pulse, but what I think he's thinking about is, what am I doing with my land this turn? Like, am I playing my Fairy Snoop and then tapping one of my creatures with the Thoroughfare? Because the Thoroughfares are just throwing such a wrench in everything that he's trying to do here. But yeah, I kind of like this. You get a little bit of the best of both worlds. If Levy, he was trying to draw a land that he could possibly play there as well that turn, that would have been huge for Raphael Levy. But as you see, that was not in the cards.
No, it was not. So we're going to go back Muhan's way now with a pretty good hand. We were wondering if a fourth land was going to be drawn. That has, of course, happened. But now it's time to serve on in. These automatons are going to trade. Krenko's going to push through. Levy's going to fall down to 14.
Yeah, this is going to trigger Krenko. So the options here is, do you do this or do you play Person of Interest?
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, I like getting my value where I can, Cedric. I know you're similar. So
I like some freebies, a couple of 1/1s because those artifacts do trade. So that's not a bad thing here for Krenko and for Muhan Yu.
Yeah, you still get to play the Red Herring next turn if you want attack with it right away.
The draw step here is from Muhan. It's going to be another mountain. So starting to float out a little bit, but does have the best thing going on the battlefield. So we'll see if the Red Herring will be played pre-combat or will it be Person of Interest perhaps post-combat.
I wonder if he's thinking about playing the Red Herring, sacrificing it, triggering Krenko here. It would use all 5 of your mana. Would start to make your goblins better. I'll say, so Muhan actually with a couple of options here. He could continue to go really wide with Person of Interest. In the back of his mind, he's probably got to be thinking about Devious Cover-Up, the Wrath effect from Raphael Levy as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Looks
well,
like
our question's been answered, right? We see the Red Herring and just now an attack step. So all of these creatures here from Muhan are going to come into the red zone. Krenko, 2 goblins, and a Red Herring.
And so this gives Muhan all the extra information, right? Like he doesn't have to do it right away. It looks like he's just going to go ahead and trade off one of these goblins to get the extra 2 damage through. And I kind of like that. Getting the 2 damage, getting Raph down to 8 here is not nothing.
Yeah, just trying to, it feels like ideally get this game over with, as there's a Rebel Belt Maverick. Going to look at a couple of cards feared for the Surveil 2.
Yep, the second black is something that could be relevant here. Going to be able to get his 5-drop into play, possibly killing a creature from you, killing the Krenko. So it means that the Strider has to stay around, or the Maverick has to stay around through the next turn, because you have to sacrifice a creature or an artifact for it. And he's going to be able to develop a 2/2 here as well this turn. I mean, not all hope is lost for Raph here, especially if Muhan draws another land here, which I think Raph is trying to hope that Muhan's a little bit out of gas, and then he might be able to make it through here and do what he did last game and kind of restabilize at a very low life total.
Yeah, but unfortunately this time for Levy, no case to generate a ton of card advantage.
Yeah,
put that on the bottom. Put that on the bottom with the Scry. So the stabilization in last game was obviously very important, but the ability to draw multiple cards a turn as well, that part's off the table here for Levy. And stabilizing is looking pretty tough here. Now let's see what happens here. It looks like Red Herring's going to be sacrificed. You're going to get a Krenko trigger. And Krenko is going to yield a goblin, draw a card, and let's keep it moving.
Furious Rage on a bad one, Person of Interest. But, I mean, part of Levy's plan is happening here. Muhan's drawing extra lands. Like this is a big deal for Raph. He needs his opponent to only do maybe one thing a turn, and he can try to find his way out of this.
That's definitely that's what it's going to take, right? In a spot like this, when you've mulliganed to 5 as Raphael Levy, your deck is not and your draw is not coming together that well. You need your opponent to start flooding out. I know that's what I said last game in a different scenario, and now here's a swamp. Okay.
Yep, this is what Raph needed. He got a turn, right? Yeah. Your opponent played a person of interest, put 2 creatures to play, but you were not attacked. Your life total didn't change in a negative way. You're going to get to kill the Krinko here, and you're going to get some value off of this too. With the Maverick going to the graveyard, you can maybe grow one of your creatures next turn to make it where it starts to block better, because you'll have a second power on one of these 2 creatures, or your flying threat will be better. And then if the game progresses from here even further, you can gain some life with the creature that's in your hand as well. So Raph's doing his best here. I didn't think he'd be able to keep it this close, and he is.
I didn't think he'd be able to either, but now we're having a little bit of a comeback here, it appears. As Muhan's deck, which is rather aggressive and did get off to a great start, is having some trouble crossing the finish line. So Levy is beginning to stabilize a touch.
Yeah, and these red herrings not being able to attack really, so it's just going to be 4-mana draw card and a lot of spots for Muhan Yu. I mean, I guess it's better than a 2/2 that does nothing, but it's not exactly what you want that card to be doing. But this does allow him to attack with everything here with a combat trick backup.
Yeah, so that copy of the Rage, target creature you control gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. When that creature dies this turn, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. So basically what this is going to allow is it's going to allow Muhan, depending on how things go, to continue to run downhill.
Yeah,
Lose something, but still make another creature. Go ahead.
Exactly. I was going to say, it's going to be curious to see which one he goes where. I think this might go on the blue-white detective that he already has. It doesn't say like non-token creature, right? Like it's any creature that dies, you make the 2/2, I believe.
That is correct.
So this will allow him to trade here as well as make another 2/2 into play. Let's see if he makes the play that he made last turn last game where he prioritized the damage over it, but I gotta believe this is going to be used as a combat trick, and it looks like it is going to go on the detective here, which makes sense. Get the biggest creature off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Levy down to 4. You have 2 creatures. I'm sorry, 3 creatures to his 2.
All right, so now there's the robbery. But I don't think this is a great time for that card.
I think he would have liked any other card in his deck over robbery, like a land, like any spell. Yeah, this is a very late game card for him, or if he's like finally got time to do something card, then that's fine. As I say, a land would have been nice for him here too, because if he wanted to, he would have been able to play this face down, have the mana to play it face up, and use the Maverick from his graveyard to grow something's power. So he would be able to gain maybe a little bit more life this turn and keep an extra creature around. But let's say, not the end of the world for Levy here. Still a decent enough turn for him.
Yeah, things could have gone much worse. Now the draw step here is an Offender at Large. It's a 5-mana 5/4. Enters the battlefield or is turned face up to one target creature gets +2/+0 until the turn. And of course, it can disguise, but I got a feeling this might just be a good time to just hard cast this thing.
Yeah, I think that's what Muhan Yu is debating here. Does he want to disguise this and use this combat trick, or does he just want to play it as a big old thing? And there we go. Is what say we're gonna just have a 5/4 get added to play. He's gonna be able to pump up the jam on person of interest here, and this is gonna allow him to get some attacks in. And I kind of like this play, Cedric. I love this call from you because this makes the red herring attack better, because red herring has to attack this turn, and you don't want to just give it away for free.
Yep. So Muhan Yu is empty-handed, but what are the blocks going to be? So Levy's going to line them up. We're going to start. We're going to start there, and let's go. Where's our disguise creature going to go? Well, Levy's going to rethink it maybe a little bit. Okay, let's go there. Let's go here.
Yeah, this takes a little bit less damage. In fact, I think he can be damage neutral here this turn if he gives his own creature lifelink here by turning it face up, which I believe he will.
Every single point matters right now if you're Raphael Levy trying to get yourself out of this situation.
Yeah, that really, really matters too, because trying to stay at a life total where he can maybe take a hit from one of the small creatures next turn, even though because he's going to go to 5, so you can take a hit from Red Herring, chump block the 5/4 here, which I was going to say, yeah, I think maybe it's time to just say go chump block here, or you can even do this now and get as many cards from Muhan's deck and just hope it's good. So it looks like he's going to do it for the max.
Looks like this robbery will be outrageous. This will be for 4. This will give Raph a lot of information. Well, that was 4 spells coming off. 3 spells.
Also, yeah, it also triggers the case. Sorry, Cedric, I didn't mean to talk about it. It triggers the case here too, which is very important. That's a very good reason to main phase that. I'll say, a miss from Muhan here.
That's what Raph needs. So there's your block. Gonna fall down to 3. Will Levy.
Yeah, you can main phase 2 Red Herring along with something else here this turn and maybe be able to block with it as well. Trying to think how does Levy get out of this, because like you don't just want to chump block. He's gonna have so many cards available here. All right, so the cards all the way to the left are actually in his hand. The cards in the middle are in his graveyard that are available to him. The cards on the right are the cards off of Muhan Yu's deck that he can cast. Okay, Soul.
Looks like Soul Innervation. Yeah, so that's going to come on down. That's going to take care of that big 5/4 that was looking to be a little problematic. Okay, so let's see what comes next. Levy has access to 3 mana. Remember, he's already played a land for the turn.
Yeah. So it looks like we're going to make the main phase 2 Red Herring play.
Oh, this is fun.
How many times have you had to do this in your lifetime, Cedric? It's never a good thing for you.
Yeah, play the must attack haste creature post combat. Doesn't happen a ton, but right now it's not a bad thing to be doing. Now this Red Herring is going to be sacrificed here from Muhan. He's going to draw a card. It's an inside source followed up by a plains. The flooding is real right now. Levy is making one hell of a comeback here, folks. That inside source isn't a bad draw. It's going to bring another creature along with it. Discard the hand, draw a couple of cards. Levy looking at many a card a turn.
And don't forget, pretty big, he got to remove a creature from his graveyard last turn and has another one that can do that in Strider. So he gained a life. So he's up to 4 now. So Lightning Helix isn't lethal anymore, Cedric. And now he can get up to 5 maybe to if he can gain 1 more life after that, he can maybe avoid. I don't know if there's a shock in Muhan's deck or not, but like you kind of want to play around that if you can, because you do have to attack here.
And the attack will come through, so Muhan's going to fall down to 15. Muhan's life total a little bit less relevant. Top card of the deck is a Perimeter Enforcer. And that's not much of anything.
Yeah, but we have a reach creature in play.
Oh, boy. And now here come the good cards, Tannen.
Yeah, more life gain as well. Cedric, this has been a hell of a match to watch, by the way. This has been some masterclass on both sides, and what comebacks we have seen from Raphael Levy in these 2 games.
We got a Wisp Drinker Vampire here. It's a shock there. A mountain's going everywhere, and it looks like even some buzz crushing is to be done. Levy going to use all the mana for the turn, and now, of course, the Red Herring must attack, and now Levy's feeling so good about things, sitting at 9 life. The Glint Weaver's coming into. What Levy needed to have happen is he needed Muhan to draw a couple of lands, and unfortunately for Muhan, his deck cooperated here for Raphael Levy. Levy on a mulligan to 5 this game, folks. A mulligan to 5.
Yeah, and you can see the just jubilation in Ref's response there as well. Kind of running his hands over his face, like I can't believe I'm even here. He can play the Watchdog, pump his entire team here. He's got some life gain if he needs it as well. But the Flyers alone are lethal here. And this Dog Walker that Muhan drew, this would have been so much better at any of the first 5 or 6 turns of the game for him.
That is going to do it. Raphael Levy, the Magic Hall of Famer, is going to win this game and match over Muhan Yu, 2-1. Boros tried to run down that 5-color deck, but Levy was able to keep his head just above water enough in games 2 and games 3 to get his first win in Arena Championship 5.
Yeah, we saw a very classic thing that happens in these kind of formats in Unlimited here, Cedric, where you had the very traditional 2-color aggro deck that is, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm attacking you. I'm playing haste creatures. I want to kill you as quickly as possible. Versus the, I'm playing all the good cards. I took the best card in every pack through my draft. My mana is great, and I have a ton of value. I actually usually give the advantage to the aggro deck, especially if it gets to be on the play for